All right. Welcome to Bible Study with Reed. I'm going to start a series on John, the Gospel of John. Now, I've been kind of reluctant to do this. I love the Gospel of John. I'd often recommend it to new folks in the faith. I'd say if you're going to start reading the Bible, start in John. And the reason I would feel that way is because to me John just is lickety-split. It keeps moving, and it really expresses the grandeur of who Jesus Christ is. But I'm more of a mind now to ask new folks to read Mark first as their first introduction, because there's so much theology that John gets into. Also, back when I was reaching out to Jehovah's Witnesses, we'd always be talking about John 1:1 and the deity of Christ, and that's big in John, and I have lots of proof texts in John for those sorts of things. And so I would tend to read John on the lookout for the deity of Christ stuff, instead of letting the text just speak for itself. And so when I began doing that, John's gospel changed for me. And it's added depth and color, and it's just a magnificent work. John must have spent a little bit of time thinking about these things and how he put it together generally before he did put it together, because there's themes that he brings out in the first chapter that reappear again and again and again throughout all of a bunch of different themes that appear again and again throughout the gospel. And so it's a magnificent work. I just love it, and I don't want to. So as I've come to read it again more carefully, I found a lot more flavors, and so I'm doing this Bible study to help bring some of those flavors out for you as well. There are some passages in it, like the third chapter of John. Nicodemus coming to Jesus at night, and John 3:16, and all those are so very, very familiar that we don't hear it anymore. And we're going to look at that in depth, and I think you'll be surprised when we get there how amazing those passages are, how much is there, the depth in them. Okay, time is fleeting quickly. I'm trying to keep it'll be 3 or 4 videos, and I'll try to keep them short. And we need to remember, again, with Bible study, context is everything. Well, with anything you read, but we don't think about the context of a newspaper because we're in the context. But context comes from many different areas. First of all, who is it that's writing the book? And this would be John, the apostle, who was a disciple of Christ, who was not just one of the 12, but he's one of the elite of the 12, one of the 3 that was always in on all the important places. They're the 3 inside disciples, which it consisted of Peter, James, John's brother, and John himself. And so we have the 2 sons of thunder and Peter, who were the inside guys. John was a witness to these things, as we'll see. There's things he talks about that only an eyewitness would know. And so he brings forth some things that aren't seen in any of the other Gospels. And so one of the contexts is who he is, and the other context is who he's writing to. He's writing to a primarily Jewish audience in the first century, with a lot of Greeks as well, who are new believers. And That's his audience, the audience of first century, the folks who don't know anything about printing, who don't know anything about telephones, who don't know anything about cars. And so we're going to try to put ourselves into their shoes a little bit to sort of see how it sounds to them when John is speaking to them, okay? And right along those lines, we have to look at what was going on in the greater Palestine area when John was writing, because that's important, because he really gets some of the passages, some things aren't very well understood unless you hear that, some of that background. And so John opens what he's going to say in his book, and he opens it this way. If you'll follow with me, John 1, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of man. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. John begins where so many of the other Gospels end, that the Word was God. And saying right up front that he's deity makes this a very radical view of who Jesus is, because most who interacted with him on earth didn't think he was God, the one that was from the beginning, the one that was God, the one that created all things. And the idea that Jesus is part of the Creator God is opposed. Even today, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons have a whole different view. There's a lot of groups that disbelieve, should we say Muslims, that Jesus was in fact God. This is radical stuff. It was radical stuff in that day. Now he uses the term Word. And Word had great meaning in the Greek philosophers. To them, Word was the thoughts that the words themselves were the outpouring of a thought. And in their idea was that whole thing from idea and thought in the head till it comes out is the Word. And so the Greeks of the day could see with this that he's speaking of something big. And the Jews of the day, in the beginning was that took them right back to Genesis, which is exactly what John wanted them to do. John was a Jew, grew up as a Jew. He was well schooled in Judaism. He was steeped in their culture. This he knew. In the beginning was, and you go back to Genesis if you're a Jew, which is exactly what he wanted to say. And the Word, all of a sudden this Greek idea is placed there, and that gets the Greeks and the philosophers of the age, those ideas. And so in the beginning was the Word. Well, what was it? The Word was with God. And the Word was God. God himself is the Word. And so he's making this grand theological statement. In fact, in verse 2 he says he was with God in the beginning, meaning before there was anything, he was with God and he was God. And so we have this triune idea coming in, the God of more than one person but a singular God. And it's not very well developed here, but there it is. Verse 3. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. Jehovah's Witnesses want to go to verse 1. I always wanted to take him to verse 3. Verse 3. Through him, hey, time's up. Okay, let me finish this thought. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. If you took a group, assembled all the things in a row that have been made, okay, and you have it stretching out, and that's one set. And in the other set, over on the other side of you, you have the set of things that were not made. All right, so we've got two sets: the made things and the things that weren't made. Okay. Now over here on the made things, we're going to have things like my shirt, my Bible. That was made too. I was made. You could have over there houses. You could have the earth. You could have stars. You could have angels. All these things were made. All right. So where is Jesus? Is he on the made side with all the things that were made, or is he on the unmade side? This verse 3, John chapter 1 verse 3, puts him in this category, and he cannot be in the created side. Because the only things that exist on this side is, of course, God, the Creator. What does it say? Through him, through the Word, all things were made. All things. Without him, the Word, nothing was made that has been made. If it's been made, it stands in the set on this side. Jesus and God is the only thing that sits on this side, because he was not made. He has existed from all eternity. We're going to come back with verse 4 in just a moment.